Hey, hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner. I'm a critic, consultant, and programmer based in Toronto, and this is the other thing I do. It's TIFF time, and we're bursting with talent over here, so my guest for this special Friday episode is Eva Thomas, a writer and director whose short film Red Lights, about two young women who find themselves in a very dangerous situation after a night out, premiered at TIFF in 2023. Last year, she returned to the festival as the co-director of Aberdeen, and this year she's back with Nika and Madison, a feature-length expansion of Red Lights starring Ellen Jade and Star Slade. It's having its world premiere at TIFF this Sunday, September 7th, at 3:45 p.m. at the Scotiabank 11, with a second screening Monday, September 8th at 6 p.m. in the Scotiabank 5. Go to tiff.net and search the title for tickets. Eva picked Moonlight, Barry Jenkins' Oscar-winning 2016 drama about a decade and a half in the life of an African-American kid through three distinct movements, with Alex R. Hibbert, Ashton Sanders, and Trevante Rhodes establishing a remarkable continuity as the protagonist, and Jaden Piner, Jarrell Jerome, and Andre Holland as Kevin, the boy, and later the man to whom he's drawn over and over again. There are other characters too, played by Naomi Harris and Mahershala Ali and Janelle Monáe, each of them contributing to Jenkins' study of how small moments of kindness or cruelty can profoundly affect the human heart, how people are always more complicated than you think they are, and how cinema remains unmatched at communicating ideas and feelings. This is Someone Else's Movie.
You know, I didn't watch Moonlight in its first run, and when it came out in 2016, I believe that's the year it came out, I actually watched it more recently, and I watched it when I was getting ready to direct Aberdeen. And I watched it at just the time when I was starting to shot list and really starting to think about how am I going to tell this movie. So it was watching Moonlight at that time of coming into my own as a director that it just had such a profound impact on me as a human being, because the film is profoundly moving, but as a director and shaping a story that I wanted to pull the viewers into and build a sense of empathy and compassion was my main driving force with Aberdeen. So when I saw it illustrated for me in Moonlight, I was like, yes, that right there. I need to find a way to do what they did in Moonlight, which is to create a cinematic story, an intimate story that allowed the viewers to get a glimpse into someone's life, to build a sense of compassion and empathy. And I just thought Moonlight hit it out of the park with the way that they did this. And I'm neither Black nor from the LGBT community, but I understand Chiron. I understand. I wanted to protect him. I loved him and was happy for him. So for all those reasons is why I picked Moonlight.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up to I don't know what it is. It's a cross-spectrum thing. But yeah, I mean, the whole point of cinema is to be able to relate to people who aren't you and feel their feelings, or at least ride alongside them. And yeah, I'm a straight middle-aged white man. And I saw Moonlight because Rad had seen it. When we were both at Now, Rad had said, this is a thing. I ended up seeing it absolutely cold with just that whisper in the ear right before the film festival that says this is going to be an important film, you should see it. And oh God, yeah, it pays off so beautifully on that promise. It's not like nothing I've ever seen before, because it is ultimately a pretty conventional narrative and it goes in a straight line, and the time skipping is handled really elegantly as part of the structure. But there is something to it. And I think I interviewed Barry Jenkins when Medicine for Melancholy came through TIFF, like 8 years before that, in 2008. And it was his first film, and it never got released in Canada, so straight to DVD. So the interview never even ran. But he said something at the time about the environments that he placed his characters in. And he said he wanted you to be able to feel the air currents, and you feel the density of the space that people are moving through. And then I see this, and it's like, oh, that guy. Like, this is what he was talking about. Because in Medicine, I don't think it's there 100%. Like, it's getting there, but it's not there yet. And here he just has, like, there's something about the gap between the two features, I think, that just...
The growth.
Yeah.
The growth of him as a filmmaker between that first feature and Moonlight is remarkable. And I have to say, as a filmmaker, to have that kind of support from Plan B and A24, for him to have the space and the time and the resources to create that film, to have that kind of belief to have that kind of belief as a filmmaker, no wonder he flourished the way that he did. Because I think as a director, what you need is that kind of support. The people who believe in you, believe in your vision. And that's the growth from his first film to the second film is remarkable. Remarkable.
Yeah. And I wonder too, like part of it is the passage of time, right? And the fact that he didn't get things off the ground immediately afterwards and knew what he'd missed out on and had chance, like he had the chance to develop his craft. But that there's something about this film too, where he is swinging so hard, like he knows this might be the only other chance he gets to make a feature. And there is this like this quiet, intense passion for what he's doing with the camera and what he's doing with the sound and the acting and just like it feels directed in a way that isn't cloying or precious or pretentious. It feels like it matters to the director in the moment, right? Like every scene is heartfelt,
intentional. Intentional. And I was watching it again in preparation for our talk, and I just could feel the love that he had for these characters and the love that he had for this community and the love that he had for these people, that these images we often see of Black men from, lower economical communities, we saw so much humanity in these people. And I think that's because he loved them and he cared so much about that. And I just, it bleeds out of the frame how much care and intention that he put into the story.
Yeah. And it was just everything that happened for it felt like moments of grace scattered throughout that fall. Like every time it opened, I mean, I know it didn't perform incredibly well. It was, I think at the time it won Best Picture. It was the second lowest grossing film to ever win Best Picture behind The Hurt Locker. But look back and like, oh, those are genuinely classic like works. They're solid artistic works from directors with vision. And I honestly cried a bit. I felt so happy. I don't get happy at awards shows. I mean, when my friends win, which has happened like a total of 3 times in my life, then I'm over the moon. But this was one of those things where like, I have no personal connection to this movie. I have no dog in this fight. I really like La La Land, but this was the moment where, yes, this film deserves all of this. It merits this consideration and it won't be forgotten. Like it doesn't matter that we haven't been those people. We know how they feel. And that's what drama is. And that's what Jenkins does. Like he just takes your hand and walks you into this world and leaves you there with them for 2 hours. And then when you come out, you're just as changed as they are.
Profoundly changed, not as a human, but as a filmmaker, and sort of, okay, yes, these are the kind of movies I want to make. This is the kind of impact that I want to make. And how he allowed us to observe. He took time with the space and time with the silence. In fact, this morning when I was rewatching it, Sharon or Little doesn't even speak until about 9 minutes in. And so we are just watching, we are observing, we are allowed into a space and a place that you or I, under normal circumstances, probably wouldn't have access to. And I think that's really wonderful when a filmmaker tells a story that's so intimate and so personal and comes from their lived experiences, that it gives us a window into a world that we probably would have access to. And the colors that they used and how they brought the film to life, and really intimate, beautiful story, but also really beautiful cinematography and the way they told that story, and very mindful of how a particular sequence of images or what you do to those images or how you chop and screw those images, how that has an impact on the viewer, and really being aware of what's the impact that you want to have on the viewer. And I think that was something they must have talked about a lot in their collaboration on creating this film.
Yeah. Well, and you said that you didn't see it until a little later.
Yeah, it came to me later.
Yeah. What was that experience like? I mean, did you go in with the expectation that it was going to be a masterpiece, or were you skeptical? I mean, I'm really curious how people approach things that are being packaged for them, like by history, by the time they get there. It's a constant challenge to get people to see anything that isn't brand new. Obviously, this was completely different in that way. It's not that old even, but yeah. What was the experience?
Sure. Yeah. Certainly was aware of the fiasco at the Oscars and what happened. It just, didn't really sit down to watch it. And I sat down to watch it because when I was preparing to co-direct Aberdeen with Ryan Cooper, who is from the LGBTQ community, and Aberdeen was his story, his family story, and he asked me to come on board to help him shape and co-direct it. This was one of his reference films. So I watched it in preparation to make a movie with Ryan Cooper, who from the LGBT community, sort of a required watching, if you will.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
And I came to that movie with an eye of, okay, this is a reference film for a movie that my collaborator wants to use as an inspiration. And so I really looked at it with that lens of how are they telling the story? What are the tools? What are the choices that they're making? And so I probably watched it as a more alert observer than probably just somebody who's like, oh, this is a great movie. You should watch it. I was watching it for like choices,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So was there one segment that you favored over the others? I mean, and if so, was it appealing to you for your plan for Aberdeen, or was it just a completely, because there's that thing where I have tried to watch movies as homework before, like as research, and then if it's any good, I just get swallowed up and I stop doing that. My critical faculties go out the window and I get pulled into the story. So yeah, did it take over?
Um, I certainly was quite well, I'm an emotional person. I even told myself, try not to cry when you talk to Norm today. Do
Do
your
what you got
best.
to do. Do what you got to do.
I'm such an emotional person. So I was swept away in the story. I was swept away in the story. I also am a stickler for structure,
Mm.
and I really, really loved telling the story in three parts. And that was a very compelling way to do it. And often when I work with writers and I talk about the three act structure, they get all, and I just say, no, it's just a fancy way to say beginning, middle, and end. And in Moonlight, we do have that. We have a beginning. We meet him when he's a young child, and then we meet him when he's in high school as a teenager, and then we meet him as a young man. So there's something really very neat about the way that the story is packaged. And so I really appreciated that. But I'll have to say that and we don't actually spend many days in each time frame with Chiron. There are a few days that we get to spend with him, the character. But in each story that I felt myself profoundly caring about this character. Like when he was little, I wanted to protect him. When he was being bullied, I wanted to protect him. And even when in the third act, in the third story, when he's having dinner with Kevin, I just was the whole time I'm smiling. I'm just like, why? I'm just like, oh my God, why are you smiling so much? It's because I just wanted Chiron. I wanted Black to have a sense of happiness. I was so invested in this story. So I think that I certainly was swept up in the story of it all, while at the same time being very aware of the cinematic choices that were
Yeah.
happening throughout the film.
Yeah, I can see that. And I mean, it's such a simple way in, the idea of beginning, middle, and end. But I think, like, when I just rewatched it, I think the thing that hit me the most is that all three of them are the ends of things and the beginnings of something else. Like each story is self-contained. There are characters that we see that we won't see again, and there are pieces that slowly put themselves together for us. But like I didn't catch it the first time through, probably not even the second. But the trick of it seems to be that each one of them is the end of a stage in Little's life, and then in Chiron's life, and then in Black's life. They all end with him kind of being alone, but then not being alone and looking into the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the tone too. Like it is so gentle to this character. The film is protecting him even when no one else will, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I guess that's what I'm talking about how Jenkins' intentionality and the way that he directs too, is that we're so close but we are still on the other side of the screen and we can't connect with him and touch him. But it's one of those things where you just want to hold the kid and tell him everything's going to be okay. And then by the end of the movie, that's what he gets. And it's just so simple and expertly handled. Like the pacing is it's deliberate. It's never slow, but it's careful. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes sure, yeah, that's what you were saying. We can see people breathing. We can see people existing. It makes sure that we catch, like Jenkins makes sure that the camera is on that little glance between Janelle Monáe and Mahershala Ali when Little first asks about gay people. And he, oh God, of course he won the Oscar for that. Like that is just such a simple, and Oscars don't define the movie. And it's not really like, it's just why everybody knows about it more or less at this point.
Yeah.
But it's such a simple, elegant moment. But if we don't catch it just the right way, if the film isn't showing it to us in the exact moment, all of that, the lead up to it, and that little moment we have to catch his kind of reaction to her.
Yeah.
He says it, he knows it's wrong instantly. She calls him on it. He holds back. Then he kind of admits it and sags a little bit. And then we see Little catch it and understand. And that's just, we don't have time for that in movies anymore. Like people are constantly saying it has to come in faster. These moments like start at the end of your scene and all of that stuff. But this film I mean, obviously it's written by a playwright who has a different expectation of what sort of story he can tell. But the understanding that the story is the beginning and the middle and the end all the time, that every piece of it is serving the emotional impact, even if nothing is happening in terms of plot. Like this isn't that kind of movie. Beale Street also has that sense that you could peel off and follow a side character for 10 minutes and you'll actually benefit from knowing these people. You know, Dave Franco's guy lifts right out. He doesn't need to be there, but he does need to be there because we need to see how everybody else responds to him and how his presence in that world changes that world. And Medicine for Melancholy is really hermetic in that it's only about two people, but they go all over the place. They spend a day together and we see the world that shaped them while they're talking about how they don't really feel like they're part of it, but then they know where to go and what to do, and everybody knows the right thing to, like, you know what to order at the right coffee shop. It's the movies, Jenkins movies are quietly reminding us that people are complicated and don't know themselves, and watching them figure things out is the most rewarding thing in drama.
Yes.
And
Yes,
it's so
absolutely.
beautiful.
And how the environment changes us, and
Mm,
how people have an impact on
yeah.
us. What's great about Moonlight is we don't necessarily have spent time with Chiron as he's in juvie or whatever, or in
Mm-hmm.
the years between with the time we spend with him in high school and the time when we meet him when he's a young man and calls himself now Black. We don't know exactly what happened to him, but we know what happened to him because we can tell how he has changed visually, how he's changed, and we don't have to be told all of the things all of the time, because what Barry allows us to do in the film is to figure it out and to trust the audience that we'll stay, that we're in with the characters, and that we'll stay here for the ride, and that we care about the characters. And I think it's a very um confident place to be as a filmmaker, to be able to say no, we need space here, we need time here, we need silence here. And even the characters at all stages, they're not Chiron, a little Black, they are not characters that are filled with words. They don't say a lot of words,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the actors are magnificent. And there were times when I was like, say something, tell us how you're feeling. And they don't. And sometimes you have to glean from the faces and from the expression what's going on internally. And the trust that he has in the audience is also really, really special.
Yeah. Well, and letting us watch someone who isn't comfortable in their own skin and understand that there's no line of dialogue about why I am this way from anybody. Like even Kevin gets a little bit at the end to talk about his past. He gets a little moment to sort of bring Black up onto where he's been and what's been going on. And Andre Holland delivers it with such like kind of this bruised confidence. Like he doesn't have to justify anything, but he is trying to tell this man that he missed him without ever really saying it. And then you cut to what Trevante Rhodes is doing, and he's doing this thing, like this restraint thing. And it's such a simple, almost impassive pose, but because of the the accrual of detail, because of all the weight of the stuff that we know about, all the things we've seen, we feel like we've lived that whole 20 years with him. And we know how badly he wants to speak and how he doesn't have the tools and just never got them, almost had them a couple of times, had the moments where things could have gone right. And in the end, the fact that they connect at all is this, like, it feels like bravery. It feels like courage.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this is coming from, and this is complimentary, a huge man, like a guy who has nothing to worry about physically. Like, and we know why he looks like that, why he's done that to his body, and why he's, and how he's gotten the access to the gym material. It was all in juvie, and that's his dedication to protecting himself. This is what he's made of himself. And to watch this emotion kind of push its way out through the fortress of this person who used to be, an hour ago, this tiny kid.
In fact, that shot when he's in the car and we see the grills, and it's just like, what has the world done to this little boy? And it's like a visual manifestation of how the world is harsh and it has an impact on us. And yet, still, with that exterior and what he looks like, he is still this tender man, this sensitive boy. And that last image, when we see that, the last image, and we're reminded of who this man was, and reminds us all that we're all just children. We all have this inner child within us. And so it's so beautiful. And I think that comes from sort of allowing a Black man to tell a story about a Black man, because I just think they have insight that I don't have, and wouldn't be able to tell the same story where that Barry Jenkins is able to, because of the authenticity of the lived experience and the love that he has for his community and his characters. This story came out of the same area. I think he grew up in the same part of Miami, and the way that he, you wouldn't expect like a drug dealer in Juan to be so sensitive and so caring about this young boy. And that's how he, shatters the stereotypes. Or we don't often get to see Black men be sensitive with each other, or play with each other, or even love each other. And we get to see that a little bit. The beauty that Barry Jenkins and how he was able to capture Black bodies in such a beautiful way, and Black joy and Black love is really very inspiring. And we, I think we get to see more of it now than we ever have been able to. But at the time, I think we were just starting to see that aspect of the Black experience.
Oh, absolutely. I was shocked the other day to realize this was only 9 years ago, but the entire appropriation conversation hadn't happened yet, really, and representation was just starting to be a thing. I was talking to somebody the other day, a different other day. I was talking to somebody recently about, it was about Jean-Marc Vallée and Dallas Buyers Club, and how in 2013, I think it was, you had to tell that story from the perspective of a straight man to get the buy-in from the audience. And then you had to cast, this was the wisdom at the time, right? You had to cast an existing star, a recognizable star, as a trans woman. And it was Jared Leto who, frankly, in retrospect, that performance is kind of a hate crime. But everybody at the time was talking about how well-intentioned it was and how they tried and how they had consultants. And just at that time, simply casting a trans woman to play a trans character was not on the table.
Yep.
There is this thing that isn't happening until Moonlight happens. And more importantly, again, Critics Awards, Festival Prizes, wins the Oscar, validates the experiment. It's a risk until it pays off, and then it becomes the standard. But it is a risk. You can still feel the electricity. You can still feel the sense that this is an incredible high wire act happening right in front of you. And you mentioned that final shot of Little, when we get that moment to go back and your brain remembers, oh, that's right, I've been watching this story the whole time. I didn't get up and leave and come back every 5 years to catch up to this character. But the sigh in the audience that happens, it's beautiful. Just this moment where one person brought me here and showed me this. And yeah, he had a co-writer. And yes, everybody involved in this film is pulling their weight and doing incredible work. But it is so truly rare to feel an individual vision at work on a film.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like it was a critic screening. There were maybe 20 people in I think it was at the Varsity, and it just ended, and everybody just sat there. That doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
We're heartless people.
But I think that speaks to the impact, to the true impact of this film,
Mm,
and it takes you on a journey, and that you really care about this character. And I think you also appreciate the artistry that was involved in making the film. And it's for all of those reasons that Moonlight is definitely one of my top 5 films.
okay, I have to ask then. What are the others?
Really?
Just off the top of your head. You don't have to
No,
actually provide a
no,
list.
no.
You have the list.
I have the list. Okay, well, I turned my phone off, and otherwise I would pull it up. But okay, so Princess Bride is up
Mm-hmm.
there. I love, love that movie. Um, there's a movie called Defending Your
Oh
Life
yeah, Albert Brooks.
by Albert Brooks, which I really really love it and appreciate. Um, Jackie Brown by Quentin Tarantino, and I
Sure.
just love Pam Grier in that movie so much. Moonlight, and these no particular order, by the way. Moonlight, and then Parasite.
Oh, good call.
Parasite. Parasite is just such a great, so good, so good, such a great movie. But yes, so those are my top 5 off the top of my head.
Hey, it's Norm interrupting my own show to bring you up to speed on Shiny Things, my newsletter about physical media, culture, and the odd streaming project. Earlier this week, I wrote about the new Blu-ray releases of Winter Kept Us Warm and HUD from Canadian International Pictures and Via Vision's Impact Line, respectively, and Jurassic World Rebirth is on the way, along with Celine Song's Materialists. Sign up for a 14-day free trial at shiny-things.ghost.io or find a link at the Simcast Blue Sky account. You like reading about movies? I like writing about them. Come check it out. As badly as I want to get into all of those because it would be fun, I want to stick to Moonlight and just kind of run the game on the cast. Is there a performance? Is there a version of any character that really pops for you? I had completely forgotten that was Naomi Harris as Little's mom.
Well, I'm actually glad that you brought her up because she is the one character that is in all. Well, I guess Janelle Monáe is also in, I think, 2 of the 3 pieces. But the mother has her own arc in the film, and we get to see her change over the years as well. But I think Barry talks a lot about how he knew that character had to be consistent, that would help the audience, place themselves, space themselves in the story, if you will. Um, there the heartbreaking conversation that they have when Black goes to see his mother in the Act 3 is just, oh my, it breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. But what it does allow for our little Chiron or Black is healing. I just felt that being able to hear those words from his mother, and being able to have his mother apologize for some of the things that happened to him along the way, it was so healing for me to have him have that experience of okay, a lot of people don't get to have that conversation with people who have wounded them or harmed them, but it was really beautiful to be able to witness and watch and to observe these characters have that really beautiful, meaningful moment. And what's also really special is that he later gets to have that apology from Kevin as well.
Yeah.
And so that I felt like in that last act, that even though Chiron had this life that was tragic and sad and traumatic, that because he had these apologies and these moments of healing, that I felt that he could move on and make different choices in his life and be someone different than who the world had crafted him to be. And to have those moments of healing that we get to watch and observe is really, really special. And we talked about it a little bit, the conversation at the table when a little in the first story, um, asks Juan about, what is it? What does it mean? Am I gay? What does this mean? And how heartbreaking that conversation is, and how real that conversation is, and how much I appreciated that Juan told the truth, and that was hard for him to do, because it meant also looking at himself and who he was as, somebody who was a drug dealer, because little asks him if he's a drug dealer, and he tells him the truth. And so even though little is very vulnerable, he does have these people in the community that are taking care of him. And I think that's why we see the film through a Black director and through Black eyes. And that normally something that people would think, oh, that's all tragedy. It's all bad. It's all bad in the hood. There actually are places of safety and love and care. And we get to see a bit of that. And so that he does have this space and safety, and people who care about him, and people who are able to help shape and protect him. It was really special too. Really nice to see.
Yeah. And it shows us the value of those people in the moment. And then we are allowed to miss them as much as later Chiron does when we come back to him.
Yeah.
And Juan's just gone. He's just not there. And it's the definition of a supporting actor. You come in, you give that performance, you leave, and you make people miss you for the rest of the movie. But it is so, it's not even shocking, because he's a drug dealer, of course, things happen to your brain is ready for it, but your brain isn't ready for it, because you've identified with this moment and this character, and you've seen, that's the empathy machine, right? You've seen that there's a decent human being in there. He's doing stuff in his life that's not decent, that is definitely unsavory, absolutely illegal.
And he knows that too.
And he knows it. Yeah. The responsibility he takes for Little when he's caring for this kid. And I don't know that this is all those viewings of The Wire speaking, but there's the expectation that he is going to groom this kid to be a soldier.
Yeah.
To just that he's using it. The sense too that we're watching even more closely because of the expectations of the circumstances, the world that's been created for us and put in front of us. But the expectation is that Juan is the guy who's going to use Little, who has some sort of agenda. And it's Paula, really, who is the more manipulative of the parent figures, simply because of her situation, her addiction. She's purely self-directed. And I think it's so incredible that by the time we see her in the third segment, that we're still hoping she's telling the truth, but we're not sure. There is this blankness in Harris's delivery that's clearly a choice, and it could be interpreted as the language of rehab that they beat into you, this is how you do this thing, and she's rehearsed it a million times, and maybe she means it, and maybe it's just the thing she needs to say in the moment, and she's rehearsed it a million times, and we're left with that ambiguity, just like Black is. And in every moment we are on his side, in his head. And when he warms towards somebody, the movie warms towards them. That's Juan, that's Kevin. And when he's not sure, the movie tells us he's not sure. And it's I think the only other example I can think of this aggressive anesthetic to identify, other than the first person stuff in Nickel Boys, which is its own kind of genius. I'm thinking Demi and his head-on shots and the conversations his characters have that seem unguarded but always serve the story or serve the larger world. And I never would have thought of Jenkins as a filmmaker in line with that. But then I look at all the other movies he's made, and I look at Demi's filmography, and I wanted to ask him. It feels like a massive influence. And it didn't hit me until this last viewing, because I just gone through a bunch of Demi stuff over the last couple of years. And it's shit, that's Rachel getting married. And this is Silence of the Lambs, weirdly enough. And just the way that a couple of shots in the third sequence are framed in the same way as the Buffalo Bill encounters, just to give us the sense of tension and distance and closeness between characters. And I can't find any evidence of it. It might just be my brain telling me things. But I kind of have that sense. Like there's a lot of Linklater in Medicine for Melancholy, obviously, but there's also a lot of the Demi Hang-Up vibe and that Altman-esque stuff that he does with space too. And I wonder, like, if this Moonlight, it feels like such an unlikely successor to those films, but it also screams it in ways.
Mm. Yeah, well, as I listen to you speak, it, well, certainly Silence of the Lambs, certainly.
Hmm.
That the way that they frame the shots, really close, or shallow depth of field, the
Yeah.
whole rest of the world out of focus. You're tight. You're really close, so we can get in. It's almost like we're almost in their head. How close that they're shooting it, and because the characters look down the frame. They're looking at
Hmm.
us, and
Hmm.
that's what I was talking about. The concept of images having an impact on us because they're looking at us. It's impacting us in a different way than if they looked a little bit, just off camera, just a little bit, over the shoulder. It has a different impact on us for sure, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah. I wonder if James Laxton has even mentioned it. I should really dig into this stuff more, but it's one of those things that fired around in the back of my head and then I just forgot
Mm,
about it until
hmm
until you mentioned it again. Um, first film he made was Medicine for Melancholy, and then he's done a lot of casual stuff, small indie work. Worked with Kevin Smith on two pictures, which just boggles the mind. He shot Yoga Hosers the same year he shot Moonlight, because the world takes you where the world needs you.
Yeah, that's right. You take a job, you want to make a movie.
Yeah.
But yes, and even when we lose one in the second story, we're wanting to see him.
Yeah.
Like you're just, not only because the performance is good, but because you understand the impact that character had on Chiron. And you're heartbroken when he's not there. And even though he's not there in the third piece, he's there. He's there because in some ways, Black grew up to be one.
Yeah, he's performing him.
Mm-hmm. Because that was the role model, the male role model that he had. So it didn't surprise me that he turned out to be that because that was what was role modeled for him. And I do think when I was watching this, in preparation for our conversation, that through these conversations that he had with Kevin and his mother there in the third act, that I think that Chiron could make a different choice and he could be out there living a whole different life, a healthy, beautiful life. Or he could be in Atlanta, running the streets. I think that he could have gone either way. Myself, I would like to think that he's living a beautiful, fabulous life, and made some good, healthy choices. That's what I would like to think, because I'm so invested in his story and his journey.
Yeah. There is a sense too. I mean, it lets us go back out into the world feeling like it's going to be okay. That whatever
Mm,
happens next, at least he's finally himself. This
yes.
is the assembly of a person that we've watched over this whole thing, and you get to see him come out the other side. And with this, I think he's always had self-awareness, but it's come layered in shame and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I think what we see next, or what happens, I don't know what happens next, but I think he goes to the gym a little less. Like for whatever, and I don't even mean that as a joke. Like I mean that
Yeah.
as a healthy. He's not going
Mm-hmm.
to destroy
Mm-hmm.
his body to look
Mm-hmm.
imposing. He's just going to be spending time with someone.
Yeah, and he
Right? Like
talked
he'll have
about
something else, an outlet.
yes, yes, and he talked about that he rebuilt himself so that he would be hard. Like he made that choice. That was a
Mhm.
choice that he made, and so that's why I think that he can make a different one. That he can make a different choice. Yeah, and probably that is a little bit more balance, a little bit more balance. And
Yeah.
through the journey, I think because he struggles so much with his sexuality and the expectations of community. Um, yeah, the expectations of the community, how he was bullied as a child, bullied in high school, that he struggled with that. And I think by the end of the movie, maybe he doesn't struggle so much. Maybe he's coming to accept who he is, and who he is okay.
Yeah. Just the sense of possibility. There's
Yeah.
It was David Koepp, I cite this every 5 or 6 episodes, and I apologize to the listeners, but David Koepp once said the thing about his screenplays is that he tries to end on a moment of the potential of happiness rather than a
Mm-hmm.
happy ending. He wants
Mm-hmm.
to let you know, the audience, that things might work out if these people commit. There's nothing as eloquent in Moonlight. It would be too on the nose to actually speak the words, but you get the quiet. You
Mm-hmm.
just get this guy breathing in for the first time in his life
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and feeling.
Yeah.
And again, you just go out on such a high. It's such a,
Hopeful.
yeah,
Hopeful. Yeah.
optimistic. Yeah.
Optimistic. Like the world's not so bad kind of vibe.
Yeah. And then Trump takes office. So, what does that teach us?
I do think that some of those endings that kind of leave it open for an interpretation, the way that we see how it ended, me or you or anyone in particular, says a lot more about us, the viewer,
Mhm.
than it does about the film itself. And that lens that each of us bring when we see a film, that it is filtered through that lens. And when you have such a strong point of view and such a strong story and such strong cinematic choices, films like Moonlight really pierce through all of our lenses and, I don't know, change us a little bit. Maybe it lets us see the world just a little bit different.
There is one other thing. Did you know about the structure change that they imposed on the film version?
No.
The original plan for the play was that all three versions of Little, Black, and Chiron all coexist. We see a day in their
Oh.
lives simultaneously, like just sort of alternating space. And it isn't until the middle of the film, because they all have different names in each segment, the
Oh,
character has a different
interesting.
name. We're not supposed to realize they're taking place in different time periods until about the halfway point where you realize you're watching one person in three pieces.
Hmm.
I think that would have been, I mean, certainly it would have changed the pacing in a way that I don't think this version of the film wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know when they decided to do it as three segments. It's absolutely the right call.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I think that by settling us in one story and then allowing us to follow that character throughout time, um, I think had again that impact. The impact allowed us to care for this character. Whereas I think if we were like following three people and we're really sure, we'd spend so much time trying to figure out where we are, as opposed to sort of like let the story impact me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I think that was the right choice as well.
Yeah. And if you engage the viewer on that level and make them work to figure out who we're seeing and why, then the walking alongside the character aspect of it is gone, right? Like
Hmm.
you're watching, you're leaning in a different way. And this way, we're just, what is this world? Where are we? Who is this kid? Why are we watching him? That's a very different question than who are these guys and what's going on and where
Hmm.
am I?
And how are they connected, right? As
Right.
opposed to sort of like, this is one human being that I will follow through their journey in life and how the world impacts them and how people impact them. And I will come to care about them. And I will be so invested in their journey that the story impacts and affects me. Um, it's just a different also effort level. When you're following a story that jumps around like that, it just requires you to pay more attention, to be perhaps be more active, as opposed to what a Moonlight allows us to do is again observe. Let me watch what's happening. Let me see what's going on here.
And that does get me to Nika and Madison in a weird way. I mean, we've touched on it already, the idea of the empathy machine and putting people in places where they wouldn't be. Both with Red Lights, the short film that serves as the jumping off point, I guess, because they're tell very different stories along the same narrative track, I guess is a way
Sure,
to put it.
absolutely.
But you are showing us a world that, other than the characters inside of it, most people will not experience or see. And Red Lights ends on a note of kind of a horrible, harsh, the thing you've been watching really happens, like an acknowledgement of reality, which I knew, but not everyone does. And Nika and Madison comes at it from a different direction, but you're telling a story about, how can I put this for people who haven't seen the film? Two women who can ultimately only rely on one another
Mm-hmm.
and the path it takes for them to realize it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think that's a very good way to put it. Certainly with Red Lights, it surprised me how many people weren't aware of what Starlight Tours were. It was, I guess I just assumed that everyone knew. But the amount of people who didn't know was really surprising. So there was certainly this educational component with the audience that I didn't expect, didn't intend, but it was a side effect of the story. But yes, Starlight Tours are something that, sadly have happened to some Indigenous people. And so that story was really set, the short film of it all, in sort of that world, if you will.
Mhm.
Whereas Red Lights, because we have more time, we're sort of allowed to see what happens after the encounter with police, and really what happens when it's just you and, in this case, your bestie, or, your ex-bestie, and you have trouble with, you have a complicated relationship now. You guys are in it together. And what do you do to survive, and how do you get through that in the face of a justice system that maybe isn't always on your side? And we get to spend some time with these and two young Indigenous women as they first find safety on the res, and then chased deeper into the wilderness or bush, and then they find themselves in the big city. And I do a little bit of city mouse, country mouse, or res mouse, city mouse with my two leads. One is really a girl from the res, whereas one is very much a city girl. And to see them in each other's world, I put the city girl in the country, and I put the country girl in the city, and to see how different they are, and yet how similar they are. But at the
Yeah.
heart, it really is about their relationship and their friendship and how they need each other to survive. 100%.
Yeah, there's a little bit of mirroring that I just loved, the bit where it's mushrooms for Madison and sushi for Nika,
Yes.
and they both have the exact same response. And in each case, the other responds in exactly the same way. And it's never commented on. And the second time it happens, it's just like, this is just how they relate to each other. But that sense that they're falling back into a pattern that we haven't seen, right? Like you're reaching back to a friendship that we didn't get to see before the movie starts. That was the thing that connected me to Moonlight. The sense that you are relying on us to understand that this is a reference to something that it happened to them. We weren't there. That's all it is. It's like the gaps in
Yes.
Little's life.
Yes.
You just have to take for granted that these people existed before we got there.
And they have a whole history and a whole relationship. And I think that's, I was thinking about that when I was watching Moonlight as well. I was like, oh, this conversation is meaningful at this table between these two people because of who they are to each other, the relationship they have, the history, and, the tough times as well as the good times, right? All of that shapes what we see on screen in any typical relationship, but also in life, right? Our relationship that we have with people is filled with all kinds of things, history, experiences, good times, bad times. So yes, absolutely, there is a bit of a history between these girls, without a doubt.
Yeah, but you at no point do you have the expositional speeches, which I think is the thing that kills these movies. If you actually, even, like, Bill, I'm your brother and I always have been, but let me tell you, like that stuff, you just, either Netflix didn't think the audience would be paying full attention and they insisted somebody put that line in there, or the writer doesn't trust the director or the actors or the audience. And it never leaves me confident, right? Like it never instills me with any reason to keep watching. And I always do. And it's always like, yeah, well, they wanted to cut corners. They wanted to do the shorthands, and the films always suffer. There's stuff just the fact that one of them calls the other goose without any context, right? There's no Top Gun speech. I assume that's what it was, but it might be something else.
It's not. No,
okay.
No. Ellen Jade, who plays Nika in the film, we were doing a reading, me and Star, all three of us got together, and she was like, in Ojibwe, Nika means goose. And we were like, and Star was like, what? She's like, can I call her Goose? And I was like, absolutely, you can. So that came, we spent a lot of time, us three, going through the script, and all of the actors. I think I'm a director, actor's director. I love working with actors. It's my favorite part. But also because I used to act. I trained as an actress. I know the language, and I trust my actors. And so I gave all of them, hey, the talk. you could talk to me if you have an idea. Like, I'm your girl. Like, let's talk about this. And I think all of them really took that to heart because they all really brought ideas to the script. And I said I would listen to them, and I often did. And so then they're more invested. Then they're more invested in the character and in the process. So no, it's not a Top Gun reference, but that's funny.
Because it didn't make sense for a Top Gun reference. I just figured it was one of like 5 videotapes they had growing up.
Oh, that's so funny. I
And
love
then
that.
and then I remembered they're too young. They've never owned videotapes.
Yeah. They're too young, but I remember Top Gun, and that made sense to me when you said it. It made total sense. Yeah.
But it's even better that it's Ojibwe because it doesn't matter that I don't know it, but people who do know the language will instantly get that, and it's another layer of detail for them.
Yes, that layer of authenticity. Absolutely.
Oh wow! And of course, you have friend of the show Amanda Brugel as someone who belongs to neither of the worlds that we see her in. Again, I'm being vague for people who haven't seen the film yet, but who knows bullshit when she sees it. And again, the outsider within an outsider community is a really interesting dynamic for her. And it's just, I'm so happy she's getting these like really substantial parts in movies these days. Whereas even 5 years ago, she was sort of, people didn't know what to do with Brugel for a while. Like she was in comedies, and she's good in comedies, but she's got this core, and it's here, and it's so great to see it. And we can just talk about her for an hour.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we can, because Amanda Brugel is wonderful. She's fantastic. And she's also really committed to female filmmakers and Canadian films. And she took a risk. She took a risk working with me, for sure. I know she probably had much bigger offers. But I really wanted to have a BIPOC person in that role as a detective because I think they bring a different lens to things, right? And as a Black woman would see things in the police force and the dynamic between the police law enforcement and the Black community. There might be something similar when it comes to police in the Indigenous community. So it was really important to me. I also just remember Amanda Brugel from Room. Do you remember when she was the cop?
Yeah.
And she was the most beautiful cop, and she was so nice. And I just, I remember thinking, if I ever had to interact with a cop, I want her to be just like Amanda Brugel from Room. And so when the casting director said to us, we think Amanda Brugel would be excellent. And I was like, she's not gonna come to our movie. But she sure as heck did, and was fabulous and wonderful. And she sharpened me as a director because she's damn good. And so I had to be sharp to work with her, and she sharpened me along with Sean Doyle, and I really appreciated their dynamic. I think Nika and Madison is the third time that Sean Doyle and Amanda Brugel have worked together, so their relationship and their friendship, I think it was really nice on film, and they could really go to bat with each other in a good way.
Yeah, it's nice to see those scenes too, because it acknowledges that so much of how can I put this without sounding like I'm on the police's side? So much of police culture is like wrapped up in this misguided idea of tradition, and how you do things is as important as what you do. And it's technically true, but it doesn't mean what they think it means. At this point, it's become something very, very different. And having Doyle as that character navigating that sort of enlightenment, like unwanted enlightenment, is a really interesting touch too, because he's got a certain hardness in his bearing that people cast him as heavies a lot or tough guys, and just watching this guy realize he's maybe back the wrong side and fight against that realization is really, really compelling.
His performance is just wonderful. And when I was talking to Sean, and actually throughout the whole process, I kept telling people he's not a bad person. He's conflicted. And what was really nice about what Sean and Amanda did was that they really cared about their characters, and they really cared that they came off as full human beings. And they, again, gave me a lot of notes and suggestions, and I incorporated them as best that I could. And I really think that it made for a really compelling, story to follow alongside with, because I think Sean Doyle's arc in the movie is really interesting to watch. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the core of it still has to be your leads, has to be Nika and Madison to keep us, there's never a question that they're in the right. It's just how many other people are going to figure that out. Gail Maurice has this incredible early moment. The first time she sees him, it's like, it's not really about what happened. It's about what happens next.
Yes. Love the wonderful, lovely Gail Maurice.
Also a friend of the show. Yeah.
Yes. I saw that she was here talking about Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, that was during the air show.
Gail and I, of course, worked together on Aberdeen, and she graciously agreed to come along and be with me as the chief and Nika and Madison. The role was originally written for a male character. And right before we were kind of like casting, my sister was elected chief of our community, and I was like, my sister's chief, I want a female chief. And then I was like, and I want Gail Maurice to come in and do it. And so I'm really grateful that she could fit into her schedule, because she was quite busy getting bloodlines to the finish line. But I just think she's such a good actress, and I really like her a lot.
Yeah, it's a tiny little showcase. I mean, it's a tiny little showcase for Gail because it's a small role, but the film is this little pocket of, like all Canadian films under a certain budget level these days. It's a look who is coming, look who you should know. These are people who either you've seen them in 20 movies and this is another really good example of what they do, or we have faces, pay attention to them. Yes. There are new people here. And yeah, I can't wait to see how it plays with an audience and what it does.
Me too. I'm excited. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how the audience responds to it. I'm thrilled with all the music that we have in the film, and a lot of Indigenous artists. In fact, all the songs in the film, with the exception of one, are by Indigenous artists, and the film is scored by an Indigenous composer. So we had a lot of Indigenous people on the crew, and certainly a lot of Indigenous people on the cast. And yeah, I'm really excited to have the world premiere at TIFF and to see how audiences respond.
I usually end the episodes by asking if there's something from the film you chose that you've relied on, but we've kind of covered the resonances, I think, as far as Aberdeen goes. But is there anything you want people to know about Nika and Madison that we haven't touched on? Is there anything you want to leave people with about Moonlight before we go?
Well, just if you haven't seen Moonlight and it's, you're like, oh my God, it's been too many years. No, it hasn't been too many years. It's still good. Go and see it. Right before I went into shoot Aberdeen, I was part of the TIFF Filmmakers Lab, and Barry Jenkins came out and spoke to us. And so as I'm going into my first feature to co-direct, and he's there giving words of advice, and I just watched the movie, so profoundly impacted me. Even when I was getting ready to work on Nika and Madison and the shot list, I rewatched Moonlight again, because it's such a masterclass on how to tell a great story that would be this tool of empathy. And I think that's seems to be so far a theme in my work, is how can I tell a story that allow the audience to create a sense of compassion and empathy for the characters. And so I think that's another tie that I'm trying to do in Nika and Madison, is, again, care about these Indigenous women, root for these Indigenous women, cheer for these Indigenous women. And through this journey, you come to understand a little bit about their world and how they came to be. Just like Moonlight.
My thanks to Eva Thomas, whose new film Nika and Madison has its world premiere at TIFF this Sunday, September 7th at 3:45 p.m. at the Scotiabank 11, with a second screening Monday, September 8th at 6 p.m. in the Scotiabank 5. You can find tickets by going to tiff.net and searching for the title. Thanks also to Ingrid Hamilton and Catherine Taylor. They know what they did. You can find Eva on Instagram at Ms. Eva Thomas, MSEVATHOMAS, and you can find Moonlight on Blu-ray and DVD from Lionsgate in the US and Elevation Pictures in Canada. Lionsgate also released a 4K disc in the US, and it's worth picking up. The film doesn't seem to be streaming in the US right now, but it is available on Netflix and Crave and CBC Gem and Starz in Canada, and you can rent or buy it on various VOD services across North America. You can find me on Blue Sky at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the show is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/Semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of Someone Else's Movie, 41 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it, or the show in general, please say so. Leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps. It truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. Stay safe, watch movies, get all the boosters. I'll see you next week.